Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Del challenges the status quo, questions everything, and empowers you to return to your core beliefs to make your life better. If you're ready to hear the truth and get your roadmap to the lifestyle you really want, the next hour will change your life. And now, your host, self-made millionaire, national award-winning investor of the year, CEO and founder of Lifestyles Unlimited, Del Walmsley.
Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and help begins. This is your host, Del Walmsley, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. Today is what we call Tell Del Tuesday, and as always, for the last 25 years, we bring somebody on the radio and explain their story, what they've done in lifestyles and what they've done outside of lifestyles. It really doesn't matter. And today we have a great story. A gentleman we've had on before, but his story just keeps growing, so we're bringing back Mr. Brian Sutton. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, Del. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always an honor and a privilege to talk to you. I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you at the expo coming up here in September. So I'm super glad things are starting to open up and we'll be able to gather and hang out with my friends and investors, fellow like-minded real estate investors there at the expo.
Yeah, I agree. I just got back from our honeymoon in Cabo San Lucas, and we took probably 20 Lifestyles members that had been to our wedding. And man, I'll tell you what, there was nothing more exciting to spend a whole week with 20 Lifestyles members. It's just an amazing feeling and a lot of fun. So yeah, I can't wait to get together, and I hope someday that you're not so busy being the man and go on vacations with us. Oh my gosh. Currently
we all got to work. We all got to work towards something.
Well, I don't know what you're working towards. Maybe today we'll figure that out. I mean, you've already got 1,800 units that you manage. That you got 86 units, it says here on the sheet of paper, that you're a part of. I know that every time I turn around, you're doing something else, so I don't even bother to try to tell people what you've done because it grows, and this might be old right here. I don't even know. So let's start with, we'll leave the fact that you're very accomplished right now. Let's go back to the very beginning. Let's talk about little Brian. When he was a kid, where did all this entrepreneurialism come in? Because you've been doing this for years.
Yeah. Super blessed to have a father who is very entrepreneurial, a grandfather that actually started an electrical company back in Lexington, Kentucky back in the 80s. And that entrepreneurial spirit kind of fell over into my father. He'd always, he had a company which he had a couple partners in, and they had a big advertising company. This is back when, big advertising was alive. Secondarily, he'd always been an investor in real estate. So he's a CPA, very much numbers minded, like yourself, Del. But he got into real estate and he'd invested in all sorts of things: the stock market, gold, silver, and just basically lost didn't do very well, and learned very quickly that real estate was going to be the way to get his family in kind of a good financial position. So as early as high school, I was painting his rental properties. I was helping him replace the toilets, and I basically was the turnkey guy for him, free labor, but very good learning experience for a high school kid. And I just through observing him and the way that he had built his real estate portfolio was a real inspiration to me, and that's why I started, very early on building my portfolio.
Well, you did go to college. Did you keep working for him during college?
I did not. I went to college and so I'm, for the listeners out there that don't know me personally, I'm actually half Asian. And so I joke that, I have an Asian mother, she's very loving, best mom in the world. But Asian mothers think that if you're not a doctor or a lawyer, there's no other occupation in the world. So some of my
the only reason that's funny is because it's so true. That's the only reason it's funny.
It is. And don't get me wrong. I have many friends and family members who are doctors and lawyers, and that's a perfectly honorable and great occupation to go into. So I went to college with that notion, thinking that I was going to be a doctor, I was going to be a lawyer, and I would come back and shadow some of my cousins and uncles in their practices, and I just was, it wasn't for me. And so right after college, I got a job in the medical device industry because of my medical background, having been pre-dentistry, pre-med, and all, but also having a business degree. And so it led me into that genre, that section of business, which was the medical sales side. So I got a job right out of college. I was very lucky. And I was very lucky to have my father pull me aside and say, hey, now that you got your first job, you really need to start thinking about investing, and specifically start investing in real estate. And so that's what I did. Right out of college, I got my first job. I purchased a house which had 2 other rooms. I rented those 2 other rooms to roommates, and that was my first rental property.
Wow. And where was that at? Because that's the other thing I'm really interested about your story today is you've been everywhere and you've done real estate everywhere. So we want to weave that into this whole thing today.
Yeah. I was so went to school out in Indiana in the Midwest, and then the company that I was working for hired me to go work and cover all of Oregon, the state of Oregon. So it was really awesome, Del, because I just got done last month giving a talk to some of our members out in Oregon and Washington. We've got a great group of Lifestyles members that are growing out there. And it was really interesting because I talked to them briefly before. I lived 6 months in apartments. It's my only time I've ever lived in an apartment complex. And so some of the members there knew exactly the apartment complex that I lived in prior to me buying my first place, just outside of college. So it's got to come full circle, and it's so fun to meet members from this group from everywhere across the country, and just share these real estate stories, and this adventure is a good connection. So so I stayed there and owned property in Oregon. Was the first place I purchased. And
what type of property you own in Oregon? Because you went with the house at the beginning. Now what was you doing next?
So then I started doing that. I started actually buying the houses, renting the rooms. And then I would move as I'd get up enough money to then buy another house, and I'd try to keep the remaining house that I had purchased and keep it rented, and then do the same thing. And so, fast forward a couple of years, I jumped around from job to job, because that's kind of what you have to do in the medical device industry. Is you have to kind of keep moving forward and keep switching companies before your product is pulled or before they make some sort of major layoff. And so that's what I was doing. I was just trying to climb the corporate ladder. And everywhere I went, I would purchase a house and rent it. So that led me, Oregon. I did a couple houses up there, and we moved down to Los Angeles, and I did a couple houses there. And then eventually I was transferred back to Hawaii and did the same thing there. So I had a decent portfolio prior to coming to Lifestyles and some real estate experience. But what was completely eye-opening to me was after going through the 2-day workshop at Lifestyles, and after immersing myself with some really sophisticated real estate investors in this group, I quickly realized that I was only scratching the surface, and that all these years that I've been doing this, I knew a little bit, but it was amazing how much more I had to know and had to grow just by being a part of this group and being entrenched and being around some of the best investors in the country.
Yeah, I understand what you feel, what you're talking about, because I just got back from vacation. We're sitting there. We've got 5 guys sitting at a table, and they range from a net worth of $10 million up to $100 million. And we're talking about how we thought we'd made it, and then all of a sudden this yacht goes by, and we look the yacht up because, yachts are pretty distinguishable. We look it up and find out that it's only cost $1,000 an hour to ride. And we're thinking, right, when you think you made it, there's this, $5 million yacht in front of you, or $10 million yacht. I don't even know what they cost. You don't realize, but being out there and meeting other people and seeing the world's examples of higher successes, it really does. It opens your eyes. So I totally understand what you're saying. I was going to ask you a little question here. Share with us a little bit, because I'm trying to get some stuff out of you we didn't get out the last couple of times we spoke to you, is what is it like to go from city to city to city to state? Well, actually, it's state to state to state with the laws. Do you have to relearn the laws in different states?
You do. And that's what's great about having a group like this that's, immersed in different states, because, the landlord-tenant laws are different, and rightfully so. Every state should have the right to mandate and create laws accordingly. But
we're going to take a break right now, Brian. Right. Hold that note. We'll bring you back and finish that up. We'll be right back with Brian Sutton and Del Walmsley Radio Show.
Welcome back. Now here's some more unconventional wisdom to set you free from the man on a mission to retire America, one person at a time, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today on Tell Del Tuesday is Brian Sutton. Brian is out of Decatur, Georgia, and he currently has about 1,800 units that he manages, and he's involved in, one way or another, about 3,300 units or so. And as we went to break, he was talking about how the landlord-tenant laws are different from state to state. So, Brian, pick it back up there and finish what you were going to say.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. What I was thinking over the break, it's one of the reasons why was we invest in lifestyles, in Sunbelt states is where, and part of the reason why we moved from Hawaii to Atlanta was to be in more landlord-friendly areas. And, having experience in owning property in not so landlord-friendly states, I can tell you that it's very difficult to manage. They stack the deck against you if you're a homeowner, and it just becomes very, very difficult to run a business and run a real estate business like we do here. And it was part of the eye-opening experience for me going through the training and going through all the training on the hub and going to the meetings at Lifestyles. This is the reason why we invest in these certain areas. So even for me, who had been invested in multiple states across the country, and again, like I said, not so landlord-friendly states, it was really, eye-opening to see why we do that and where to focus our strengths and where to focus our investment. And so what's amazing is that, we've been focusing in on some of the Sun Belt states. I know that in Texas, I personally have a bunch of investments in Texas, and our company is now in 3 different states in Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee. And we've been looking in the Carolinas to invest there as well. What's nice is that our investors that we have with us, they can live anywhere. They can live in Illinois and Chicago. They can live out west, in Oregon and Washington and California, and they're still able to invest with us here in these Sun Belt states where, it's a little bit more, it's more landlord friendly, and the cards are not stacked against us.
When you first came to Lifestyles, where were you living at?
I was living in Hawaii, and this was back in 2015. I'd like to think that we were a little progressive and ahead of the curve about moving out of high tax, low wage, high cost of living states and moving into, low cost of living states and tax friendly states. But I won't take total credit for that because I think there's been a huge migration pattern. I think we have seen a bigger jump. Probably yourself, Del, and the people that live in Texas have seen this, since COVID hit. There's just a mass influx of people coming in from the coast and coming in from, relocating from the coastal areas, which are high tax, just very expensive, high cost of living states, and moving into states like Texas and Georgia. But we started, our Lifestyles journey back in Hawaii, and my wife and I had been moving into parts of Texas or into Georgia or someplace in the South. We had crossed off the top of the United States, and I'm sorry for people that live up there. I have tons of friends that live up there. I do. Still have some of my closest friends are from Indiana University and live up there. And it's amazing people, but the winters and the weather, and I think you and I have talked about this, I can't do it. I need someplace warm. So we moved from Hawaii and decided that Atlanta would be a nice spot for us to land. We had some friends in the area, and we love it. We love all the trees out here and everything about it.
So when you first started, there's always an aha moment. Obviously, you'd already done some real estate, but I'm sure there was an aha moment. What struck you as the aha moment when you took the 2-day for the first time?
There was a ton of aha moments, but I think the big one for me personally was converting from single family to multifamily. And I think most of us, not most of us, but I think my story hopefully resonates with some people out there, especially the people on the coast, where you may keep your house, your primary residence that you live in, and then you rent it out, and then you buy your second primary residence and you live in there. And I think a lot of those people have bad experiences with renting single family homes. One, they they find that if they're not doing it properly, it's not as easy if they don't have the correct map and they don't have the correct mentorship. And then what I found is that even when you build up and you scale up a lot of single-family homes, it just makes more economic sense, and it makes more sense to transition into multifamily. And so that was the real game changer and real aha moment for me joining this group. And I don't know of any other group out there that helps people and mentors people like myself or others who maybe even have less experience than I do to get into the multifamily business.
Did you start by being a passive, or did you become an independent investor, or did you become a syndicator right out of the block? How did you get started?
So I got into 3 or 4 passive deals right away, and I wanted to, experience what I wanted to. I went out and met. I went and networked and went to the events in Texas and met some of these leads, the people who were putting together the deals. And that was, I think, an amazing process, too, is just to be able to see and really get to know these people on a personal level prior to investing with them, or just to see them to know that they're a real person. And that's how I got started. I started investing passively, try to understand the whole process, and I was just, very fortunate to be able to learn and be mentored by some really, really great, by really great investors.
When you first started, were you surprised how open people were about their personal wealth and finances?
Completely. It's still odd to me because I didn't grow up that way. A lot of us didn't grow up that way. I think generationally, I think people a little bit younger than I am, probably it's less taboo, to talk about finances and wealth. And I'm glad. I think it should be that way in an educated and safe environment. And that's really what LU brought. It was amazing to see how people were like, look, this is exactly how I did it. This is exactly how much money I make. This is the math. This is how if you want to follow this, this is how you follow it. It was completely blew me away.
Well, when you came in and you got started, you seemed to move very quickly. We've just got about 30 seconds here in this segment to finish up with. What gave you so much confidence to move so quickly through the group and through your investments?
Hands down, it's the mentorship. It's the mentorship you get at LU. And I couldn't have done it without, them encouraging me. And as we put the plan together, once you have the plan in motion, then it's just a matter of executing and just a matter of just going and doing it. And, most people get stuck because they don't have the right plan.
I got you. All right, we're going to take a short break right now. We'll be right back with Brian Sutton and the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
Welcome back. Now here's some more unconventional wisdom to set you free from the man on a mission to retire America, one person at a time, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today is Brian Sutton, and Brian is talking about how he's made his way into the business of real estate from doing it just as a single-family house here and there as he traveled the country doing his job into becoming a full-time real estate investor and entrepreneur. So, Brian, as we come back here, let's talk about when you finally decided to do your own deal. Did you start with an IRO or did you go right into syndication?
So we've discussed this before, Del, but for the listeners who haven't heard any of this, or hearing this for the first time, I had a unique or not so unique situation where I actually was laid off. We had, like I said before, earlier in this conversation, we were moving our family from Hawaii out to Atlanta. We wanted to go from, a higher tax environment to a lower tax environment. We wanted to go to a state that was a little bit, a lot lower cost of living, a better opportunity just for our family. And we had a plan all set out with my LU mentors when I got laid off. And I happened to only be up here for 6 months. So you can imagine that conversation with your wife when you move your family halfway across the world. And then the employer that told you you had a job and, everything was going to be safe and fine. And they, brought you up to this new state, now had to let go 30% of their sales force. And I, at the time, had worked my way up in the corporate ladder and had about 10 sales reps underneath me. All 10 of them get laid off, as well as my position gets eliminated. So it was a shock. It was not a very fun time in my life, but, most of the time when you grow, I know you're a weightlifter, Del. It's like you can't grow your muscles without some pain. And so looking back on it, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me, but going through the experience of it, it's painful. And I think hopefully some people out there can relate to this, relate to getting let go, relate to being scared of being let go by corporate America. And so thank God I had already set into some motion some things with my LU mentors, and I'd already been a part of this great group, because out of that arose an opportunity. My wife and I were originally just thinking about doing a small IRO for ourselves, maybe buying 50 to 75 units and converting a lot of our single-family homes across the country into smaller multifamily and just doing it on our own. And I thought I would get into being a lead or syndicating deals later on, potentially down the road. But after speaking with my mentors and after, reevaluating the plan, the best laid plans are sometimes need changing. And after sitting down with my mentor here at LU, I realized that, hey, this could be a great opportunity for me now that I'm off the W-2 drug, and, trying to transition into being a full, entrepreneurial business person. This could be the precipice. This could be the moment where I just say, let's rip the Band-Aid off and let's just go full bore and see if we can create a business on our own and not ever have to go back to corporate America. And so I was just very fortunate that I had the right people and I was surrounded with the right resources and the right plan. And so when that catastrophic event happened to us and my family, we were able to bounce right back. And it took me a year. It took me a year of being immersed in the education that we have at LU. It took me about a year to build a solid team out here in the Atlanta area. And just in about a year's time, we purchased our first property, and that was back in 2017.
So when you did that, how many units was that, by the way?
We joined late 2015 in Hawaii. We moved our family out early 2016. Halfway through 2016, get laid off, and then went full throttle fully immersed myself into LU and multifamily for that next year between 16 and 17. And then about mid-year 17, we bought our first property in June of 2017. It was a 124-unit apartment complex here in Georgia. And then about October, several months later, towards the end of the year, we bought our second property, an 88-unit property, also located in the greater Atlanta area. So like you said before, it seemed to happen very quickly to the outside, but I think there's a lot of planning and preparation behind the scenes for us to be able to move, I guess, so quickly. And it was a great ride. I mean, it was a very stressful moment losing your job, but after you get your plan together and you have the right people around you, it's amazing how quickly you can grow and adapt.
Well, you did. When you did the first couple deals and you didn't have a W-2 income anymore, did you have to have a KP, a cosigner?
I did, and found that relationship through Lifestyles as well. This gentleman was extremely experienced. He's one of your mentors and has been with the group for over a very, very long time. He's been a huge influence in my life. He's just paved a path for me, and I've seen his map and how he has been so successful in his career. And he's a few years older than me, so I thought, hey, this is a great example. This is a great person to kind of connect to the hip to and to really learn from. And so, again, we talked about this earlier in the radio conversation, but it's the people you surround yourself with, like you guys going to Cabo and surrounding yourself with, millionaires. You look out and you say, oh gosh, where could you get this experience? Where could you find these people? They're not at Kroger. They're at
Yes, we are. We are at Kroger.
Yeah.
You just don't know who we are because you can't tell us because we dress like everybody else.
Exactly. So it was he's an amazing person, amazing mentor in my life, and I met him here. So that was part of the plan as well. So as soon as I could build up, now, I'm at the point now where I can actually KP my own deals, which is nice. And that was, he and I's there was a whole plan, was that he was going to help me out. We're going to help each other and, help each other grow. So it's been a really good relationship.
Gotcha. So you went through 2 deals fairly quickly, but you have a lot of deals now. So you had to continue to move very quickly. One of the things that I noticed as I was watching you progress in your portfolio was that most of the people I spoke to were very, very happy about being involved with you. That's why I even invested in one of your deals. I say, hey, this sounds like a good train to get on. Let's see where it's going. And how did you keep that kind of lead investor, passive investor relationship going with people?
It's a lot of work, but for me, it's easy because you always say when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. And I love meeting people. I love just networking with people. And that's what the group is all about. And so I just kind of immersed myself in flying to different Texas, going to different meetings, taking the opportunities that the group gives you to meet people and network. And so that's really how everything kind of snowballed, and it snowballed very quickly. I think once I think you do your best and people hear that you're doing good work, it's such an honor, and so it's such a privilege, and I'm super humbled that we get recommendations to other members in the group and I get to meet them. And so that's really how it snowballed fairly quickly. We try our best to highly communicate, to be transparent, and just to follow the rules of what LU sets out, which is we want our passive investors, the people who are investing their money with us, to feel like they're a part of the process and that they know what's going on, and that their principal is safe with us, and that we're going to grow their money like so many other people have and other lead investors have within this group.
All right, here's an easy answer for next time somebody asks you that. So I send them checks.
Yeah. That helps too.
I don't know how much better I could like you than the day I get your check, right?
Yeah. The mailbox money is always nice. So that doesn't hurt people's feelings towards me as well. So
not at all. So as we move on here, you've accumulated quite a few deals. How many total? 7 apartment complexes. And you said they're in what states now? Real quick, we only have 30 seconds. What states are your deals in? 3 states, you said.
Yeah, currently we are in Georgia, basically in the greater Atlanta area. We have got a couple properties up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we're in the Tennessee market. And then we also have 2 properties in Montgomery and 1 in Mobile, Alabama.
Oh, so, wow, Mobile. That's cool. All right, well, that's exciting. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about what you've got and where you're going in the future. So everybody hang with us. We'll be right back with Brian Sutton and the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
Welcome back. Now here's some more unconventional wisdom to set you free from the man on a mission to retire America, one person at a time, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today on Tell Del Tuesday is Brian Sutton out of Decatur, Georgia. And Brian currently has about 1,800 units that he's under his personal management, and 7 apartment complexes make that up. And he's also involved in about 3,300 plus units across the country as both a passive investor in KP and, of course, his own that he's operating himself. So, Brian, I always ask this question. In fact, I have really 2 parts I want to get to. So I'm going to cut myself off and leave part of it. I'm going to go back to this. We just went through a pandemic. People here in Houston, 95% of us, we didn't have any problem with it. We got through it. Even though they said you couldn't evict people, we still got people to pay. We helped people. We motivated people. We made it the nicest place to stay, so they wanted to stay and they wanted to pay, et cetera, et cetera. We did all the things, the right things, and we came out to where only a very few number of people had some big problems. And I think most of them, Brian, had problems going into the situation. In other words, they had overpaid. They didn't anticipate property tax increases, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't bring enough money in for rehab. And so when the pandemic hit, not having done it not appropriately, the pandemic made it the problem to get them where they were. How did you deal with the pandemic across 3 states? What were your results?
Our results were exactly as you said. When the pandemic hit, it was amazing to have mentors and colleagues across the country that we could bounce ideas off of. I think we immediately had an email chain going out with 80 of the top, multifamily owners across the Southeast and the country. And so we were able to just bounce ideas off each other, and we were very proactive. And I think we immediately reacted to the situation, and it was so comforting for me to know that I had people to bounce stuff off of, and very, very small. We had a very, very small effect from COVID, which, knock on wood, was such a blessing. We had a few people with very high delinquency, but 95% to 97% of the people all paid on time. And I think I want to reiterate exactly what you said earlier, which is because I feel that we give the best product at the best price, which is our mantra here at LU, and that the people were happy and satisfied. I'd like to think that the people were happy and satisfied at where they were living. And so our residents, reacted in kind. We all worked together, our property management team and our residents, to just work ourselves through this pandemic and the shutdown, basically, of our economy. And now that the economy is coming back and we're, starting to reopen everything, we're starting to see some good momentum. And so we're very excited. And we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but I think that here at LU, we're so positioned in Phoenix, Arizona, in Texas, and all the Texas markets from Austin, Houston, and Dallas, and San Antonio over to where we're at, a little bit more east into the Sun Belt. So in the states that I just discussed, Georgia, and Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, the Carolinas, I think these states are all just ripe to boom because we have so many people migrating down into these states, looking for work and looking for opportunity and looking for a place to get ahead.
Well, I think it's interesting because you're filling in. It's we started back out at the East Coast in Atlanta and worked our way down into Florida, and then now you're working back if you're in Mobile, Alabama. Someday they've got to meet. We've got people in Louisiana, we've got people in Texas. You got Alabama and Atlanta, Georgia. So we've got people in North Carolina, South Carolina. We got people in Indiana. So it eventually has got to kind of flow into each other. So just glad to see that you had no problems. I know when we first started with the pandemic, I asked everybody, all the leads, hey, let's hold the first quarter distributions back just in case we run into problems so we don't have anybody losing their properties. I think most people have let that go now. Are you still keeping that extra quarter of distributions, or have you let them go back yet?
No, we sent those back to investors because we felt like we were comfortable with how the properties were cash flowing, and it's just been a great process. It's been so fun to be able to give our investors quarterly cash flow on 90% of these properties. We do have a couple. We do have a kind of a value add property that we're working on that's not cash flowing right now, but for the most part, that quarterly cash flow has been really great, I think, for a lot of our investors to enjoy it.
I got one last question for you, and you only have 1 minute to answer it, and that is this. How much further do you have to go before you can say that's enough?
We talked about this before, and I sing to the mantra of this world is not a zero-sum game, and that there's enough room for everybody to succeed in life. And for me, it's about growing. It's about improving. And I just want to do that every single day. If that means getting a couple more units, that's great. If that means spending more time with my family, my 2 kids and my wife, then that's excellent too. So I'm just going to keep growing and keep trying to give and keep trying to contribute until God tells me I can't anymore and I've got to move on. That's kind of my life philosophy. So I don't really have an end game in mind. And we talked about this before, Del. I don't really care too much about the money. I don't, at this point, lifestyle has given me so much financial freedom that I never even expected to earn this much money in my life. So it's not about the money. It's really just about growing, and it's about helping, and it's about just having some fun doing it.
Absolutely. Does that mean that you're going to be able to go on vacation with me next year?
I'd love to. And what we need to do is we need to go out to Hawaii, where I'm from, and meet some of the members out there. We've got a great membership out there. I've been wanting to get back out there. Actually, I just went out there to visit some family.
All right.
That'd be fun to go out with you.
Tag, you're it.
Yes.
Tag, set
right.
that up. You know Hawaii. You could get us all this fun stuff to do. Hey, Brian, Thank you for everything you do. Thanks for coming on the show again and sharing your story again and again and again for people, even the case studies and so forth. Look forward to seeing you at Expo. And for the rest of you out there, remember this. Brian's not doing this for the money. He just told you. He's doing it for the lifestyle. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.
The information and opinions you hear on the Del Walmsley radio show are those of the host, Del Walmsley, his guests, and his callers, and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this station, its affiliates, its management, or advertisers. The Del Walmsley show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Del Walmsley show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.